Alright, so we're going to make a rockin' heavy metal poster with my face in it, plus using the codes and conventions that we stereotype heavy metal rockers with. So I'm going to go to File, New, and we're going to change the document type here to International Paper. Make sure that's set to A4, and we'll change this to Heavy Metal Rockin'. So we need to get an appropriate font, so I went onto duffont.com and I've just made up a pretty lame band name, Mr. A Rockin' Mr. A. I've just aligned the font so it looks kind of cool together with these two little intersections here, and I'm turning them on and off with the little eyeball on the layers here. Now if any time you don't have any of the windows or layers or tools that I'm currently using, what you need to do is go to Window, Workspace, and then usually just hitting Reset Essentials will bring everything back. So this is what the workspace I work with, and it's the one that you should be working with too until you get a bit more advanced. As you can see, we've got our font. We can change this and we'll do it at a later date, but first we need an image of ourselves. Now I've just gone into Facebook and grabbed an image that looks pretty heavy metal already. I'm in some costume here. The expression or the colors aren't very rockin', but we can change that. Not the expression so much, but definitely the colors. I'm going to click and drag this layer underneath my font. So I'm going to select, click and drag this layer down until we get that little white bar. It might be a little difficult to see, but it wants to click in there. So when you see that little white bar, we know that that layer of myself is underneath everything. A handy little tool I like to use is this Move tool here, and I like to select this checkbox, which is called Auto Select. Now instead of going to each individual layer when I want to click and move something, I can just click and move the component that I select with my tool. Now we'll look at positioning in a moment, but I think I want to get rid of this background here. So what I'm going to do is get a selection tool. Now the one I'm after is just under this magic wand tool here. It's called the Quick Selection tool. So I'm holding down on this button, Quick Select, and I'm just going to click and drag. That looks like a pretty good selection, and hit delete. And I'm going to do that again over here. Now sometimes you'll find when you're selecting things that it'll come up with an error saying that you need to rasterize your image. It's really easy fix. All you do on the layer that you're trying to delete is right click, and then there'll be a rasterize layer option just here that you click, and you should be able to again select and delete. Now once you're done with selecting, it looks a little rough on the outside here. So we're going to smooth that out a little bit. I'm going to go to the eraser tool just here, and I'm going to right click when my cursor is on the canvas. This is the canvas, this white area here. And I'm going to bring this hardness all the way down to 0 and make sure the size is up around, the 300 mark or so. And I'm just going to slowly erase. Now, I'm noticing a problem here. Nothing's actually erasing. And that's probably because we've still got something selected. So I'm going to hit Control and press D, and that will deselect anything I had selected. And my suspicion was correct. You can see now that I'm actually able to erase. So I'm going to hit Control plus Z to deselect. So I'm just very carefully going around these edges here, and I'm just going to fade them a little bit into the background, just like so, just to get rid of those harsh edges. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Cool, looking good. Now the colors are all off. They're very light. We've got yellow in there, which is definitely not a heavy metal kind of color. We want whites, blacks, reds, very strong contrasting colors. So I'm going to apply a few things here. The first thing I'm going to apply is under image. So I'm going to go to image, adjustments, threshold. And this gets rid of most of the tone and just goes completely black and white. So I'm going to move this slider until it keeps a bit of the detail. That's looking pretty good. Oh, I like that. Very heavy metal. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. Although some of the detail is lost. So we don't want to lose all of the detail. A handy trick we can do is we're going to hit cancel and we're going to make a duplicate of this layer, and we can combine 2 or 3 or 4 different styles together and kind of merge and mesh them in together. So to do that, I'm going to click and drag this layer to this bottom right hand page here, right next to the bin. And you can see that's given us another layer and another layer, aptly called layer 1, layer 1 copy, and layer 1 copy 2. So I'm going to apply the threshold to layer 1 copy 2, and just for some housekeeping, I'm going to rename my layer so I don't get confused as to what is what. So I'm going to double click, left click, on the word layer 1 copy 2. There we are, and rename that threshold. I'm going to rename layer 1 by double clicking on the word and call it OG or original, gangster. And this one here, I'm going to apply a hue to. So let's do our threshold. I'm going to select the threshold layer, image, adjustments, threshold. Yeah, it's pretty rad. Right there. Okay, sweet. I'm going to turn that one off. I'm going to apply a color now. Image, adjustments, hue and saturation, and this is where we get to choose the color. I'm thinking some red, and I'm going to increase the saturation. I'm going quite pink, and bring down the lightness a bit as well. Something like that. Yeah. All right. Turning on the threshold again completely overrides this hue layer. But if I go to this opacity tab here, I can choose to diminish and turn off some of this threshold. So I kind of get both layers creeping through. So you can see I've got the coloring of my hue layer and that cool threshold effect. So it is done by a bit of eye. I think that's a pretty good mix there. So I'm just at shy of 50%. So I've got 49% threshold, 100% hue. Now there's probably another cool filter I can add too. So I'm going to turn off these 2 layers and apply a filter to this OG level. I'm going to go up to filter, filter gallery, and down here on the bottom left, I'm going to zoom out until I can see my image. And already, whatever I've picked, watercolor, that's looking pretty awesome. So you've got all these different filters under different folders here, a bit like Instagram. You can play with the amount the filter is applying, and down here in the bottom left is a loading bar. So it takes some time for at least larger images with more complex filters for it to change. I'm going to go for a high brush detail, high shadow intensity, yeah, and let's look at texture. So I've cranked that up to 3, or I can take that down to 1, waiting for the load. It's not much different. I might back the shadow off just a little bit as well, to about there. That's looking pretty good. Now I like watercolor, that's looking awesome, but I'm just going to go check out poster edges as well, and maybe cut out. No, I think sticking with watercolor definitely is providing some really interesting results. So I'll click OK. Already a cool change. Let's see what the threshold on top of that does. That's pretty metal. And hue, of course, will override everything, but if I change that down to that 40 mark, I've still got that orange band that really sticks out, which I don't like at all. I might even get rid of the